So pornography, starting out, many people equals many opinions. Lots of people have lots of opinions about pornography. Lots of people have lots of very strong opinions about pornography. I cannot get in today to the nuances of the discussion around pornography and those who advocate for pornography and those who advocate vehemently against pornography. Those conversations are out there. I caution people to look critically if they're Googling, like, should my child watch pornography? Or like pornography in general. A lot of the websites that come up initially are people that they may have sort of like, they may be wanting to make money or like have a really strong like values influenced content around pornography. And so just asking people to think critically when they're consuming media about pornography. But I think the most important part for this conversation is that it's not a matter of if someone will see pornography, it's a matter of when they will see pornography, especially with the accessibility of pornography online, particularly given that we're just sort of emerging, hopefully, from a pandemic, but lots of people are spending lots and lots of time online in front of a screen. That's how we're doing school. That's how we're doing work. We're on cell phones, we're on tablets, we're on computers. And so pornography is out there. So we can't just sort of assume that people aren't going to see it if it's not shown to them. We need to plan around, like, this is a thing that's going to happen, and what can we do to increase some like media literacy around pornography. There is nothing inherently wrong with pornography as a medium, entertainment, but pornography without accompanying sex education is where we see lots of challenges. And that's what happens most of the time, right? Is that people are seeing pornography accidentally when they're younger. They don't know what they're seeing. No one's ever talked to them about body parts. No one's ever talked to them about what sex is, all of the different kinds of sex. No one's talked to them about pornography being a thing that exists. And so when they see it by accident, or when they're shown it by accident or shown it on purpose, there can create a lot of challenges. Those can be like social emotional challenges, and those can just be challenges in understanding like what are the expectations with sex. So again, I think we need to think about what can we do for prevention. What can we do for prevention? Because we know that people are going to be exposed to pornography at some point, in all likelihood. So what I'm going to present is a really brief overview of some strategies and approaches that are for addressing pornography access in youth. And so by youth, I mean those under the age of 18. So I won't talk in a lot of detail about access to pornography and some of the strategies for people who are over 18 where accessing pornography is legal. Speaking of legal, it's important to know the law. So we have an audience watching today, and then that we'll watch recordings afterwards that are probably going to be watching from a lot of different places. So I cannot speak to the laws around pornography where you live and work. So it is up to you as a parent or as a service provider, as a school, to know the law where you live and work. What is the law surrounding pornography? Sometimes those laws can be easy to find, and sometimes those laws can be really hard to find, or they're sort of like not very clearly defined, right? So like something about explicit material, well, like what does that include or not include, right? So we really need to know. Most places, the law is 18 years old, that people need to be 18 years old to legally access pornography. It is illegal to sell pornography or to facilitate access to pornography for those underage. Again, look at your own laws, but I think this is just a general thing that's a good baseline to start at. To not sell pornography to or knowingly facilitate access to pornography for somebody who is under the age of 18. I think it is important to say that people over the age of 18 have a legal right to access pornography. I feel strongly about this, that if someone wants to access pornography and they're over the age of 18, that is a right that person has, and we can't rights buffet clients where we say you can have some rights and not others. If we want to move towards a culture where people with disabilities' rights are respected, we need to do that for like all of their rights. Having said that, we want to do some education. We don't want someone to turn 18 and then all of a sudden they are legally allowed to access pornography, but they haven't had any sex education. Also, still harmful. But it is a right for most places for people over the age of 18 to have access to pornography. Having said that, no one should be exposed to pornography without their consent. So somebody who's 18 shouldn't be exposing somebody to, and they have access to pornography. That's something that they've advocated for. Hopefully there's some education for them around pornography, what pornography is, what pornography isn't, what sex in real life is, what sex in real life isn't. And then, but that person doesn't have a right to watch pornography in the living room at the group facility where they live because the other residents don't want to see it, the staff don't want to see it, and those people have rights too. So we need to figure out a way to balance rights of clients and people if we're service providers or family members with other people's rights, and also space around there's a difference between rules and laws when it comes to pornography, right? So pornography and family rules is going to be different than pornography and the law. Family rules may be different from laws about pornography. Family rules may be the same as laws about pornography. Family rules may be like, once you're 18, that might be a family rule. Once you're 18, if you want to buy a magazine that has pornographic content, you can bring it into the house as long as you keep it in the bedroom, under your mattress, and you don't talk about it with your brother or your sister. Family rule. Fine. Family rule may be, I don't want you to access pornography on the computer in the house because other people could access it, but you could have a magazine, something like that. A no pornography rule as a family or as a culture will do nothing to stop pornography viewing. We talked about this a bit before. Abstinence-only education doesn't work for sex broadly, and it also doesn't work for pornography. So we can press a no pornography message, a pornography is harmful message, but if that's just the new abstinence-only sex education, and it's not helpful. We need to do some sex education and some education around pornography because people will see pornography. They'll see it when they're younger, maybe by accident. Maybe somebody at school shows them something. Now it's just so accessible with like a cell phone. It used to be a group of kids going into the bush because someone found an old Playboy shoved in a tree, and now it's just somebody found a video online and then they're sharing it with other people. And I also think that like family rules around pornography can't be just implied. They need to be stated. We need to have clear rules about what they are, and they need to be discussed. And I think this is where it's hard because this is a topic that a lot of people find super challenging to talk about. I will have some resources that I was smart enough to put in some QR codes upcoming for some good resources around pornography that you can access so that you can get more comfortable with this conversation and this topic as a family, as a school, as a service provider. Assuming that pornography will not be seen or accessed isn't enough with our increasing use of technology, right? So filters are fantastic, but they don't catch it all. And I don't know if about most people, but like I'm starting to get to the age where I realize that kids know way more about technology and working their way around technology and finding stuff online than even I do. And so as technology increases and digital technology is now not just like a privilege, but often an expectation, for example, with online schooling, we don't have the ability to control that in the same way that we might have been able to control information coming into a home in terms of like books and things like that. So why pornography? So there's lots of different reasons. You can sort of like think about some of these, but why you think people might access pornography. And I'm going to talk about 4 of them, each individually. So first is curiosity. Why people access pornography? Because they're curious. Why do people access pornography? It was an accident. Why do people access pornography? They want sex education. Why do people access pornography? Because it makes them feel good. And so we'll talk about each of these. So why pornography? Curiosity. People are curious. Kids are curious. So having age-appropriate sex education books and resources available to answer questions, like some of the ones that I'll put in my resource book listing, is a good way to provide safe, contained access to information. If somebody wants to know what a penis looks like and they've never seen one before, and the only place that they can think of to find what a penis looks like is on the internet, they will Google penis. Or they will Google, what does penis look like? Or what does a hard penis look like? And so if you have a book that has pictures, drawn pictures, not real bodies, of penises, you can show that to a child at an age-appropriate level and sort of be like, yeah, that's what a penis might look like. Penises look different. Vulvas look different. And so that's the best way to sort of have, you need to have something more readily available than online pornography is available. And online pornography is very readily available. Answer questions or find help answering questions when your child asks them or they'll go looking. So really quickly, based on options for sexual health, so Askable Adult presentation, if kids ask questions, the first thing to sort of say is that, like, thank you for asking me that question. I'm so glad you feel comfortable. So like affirm that that's great that they're asking questions. 2 is sort of like ask why they're asking that question. Like, what makes you ask about that? Why are you saying that? Because someone might say, oh, somebody at school showed me a picture of a penis. And so I wanted to know, like, do all penises look like big and hard, right? And so now you've got some information from your child. Second is sort of answer the question as like briefly and factually as you can with the information that you know. Don't lie, and don't be afraid to model that you don't know. So say, I'm actually not sure about that. How about I find the answer and we can talk about it and then insert a time. Don't not come back to it, but at bedtime, at bath time, after dinner. Why don't we look at this YouTube video together and we can find the answer together. And then again, like reaffirm, thank you for asking, did that answer your question? But we need to be available as question answerers for kids. If you're a professional, you can do something like I talked about earlier, which is like, thank you, that was great that you asked me a question. Super happy you feel comfortable. Let's think of who your 5 trusted adults are, and you can ask one of those people. We'll write it down. Mom, dad, auntie, grandma, older brother, right? So kids are curious. We need to help them direct the curiosity in an appropriate way. Accidental. Setting up filters and parental controls to block as much as possible. As the adult, you are responsible for what your child is seeing on the internet. Limit device use to public areas of the house or limit hours is another way that you can approach this. But I do think that, again, setting up these filters and limiting device use, this doesn't mean that you can't have the other conversation as well. Can't just block, can't just stop it, because again, accidental could mean somebody else's phone at school, somebody else's like Wi-Fi connection in a public place that doesn't have your same filters, right? So these aren't things that should stand alone. It's part of a plan to help talk about pornography. Talk about what to do if your child sees something online. So pornography is, pictures of adult bodies that are naked, that are real bodies. And so they might be touching or they might be doing something sexual. And if kids see something, they need to know that they should say something. I think a really important thing to do, especially when it comes to technology, and when we're talking about older kids in particular, is tell them if they come to you and say that they saw something online that they said was like naked bodies, made them feel uncomfortable, or they didn't know what they were looking at, tell them that they will not be in trouble, and then don't get them in trouble, right? Especially if they saw it accidentally. Kids will not report that they saw pornography by accident or someone showed it to them because they're afraid their parents will take their phone away. And their phone is like, that's it for kids these days, right? That's their social connection, especially right now with the pandemic. So a phone removal for like accidental use, if a child reports something to you, is not a good strategy, because then, same with the body parts, they learn that if I tell somebody that I saw something that made me uncomfortable, I have a consequence that I don't like. My phone got taken away. So I think it's important that they have access and continue and have that access. If there's multiple violations of purposeful seeking out of pornography, you might have to look at a different consequence, but we're talking about accidental exposure to pornography at this point. So sex education. So pornography is very available online, and so education needs to be just as available, right? So where are we going to put our effort? If I can find something quickly online that I think is good information and it takes like this much effort, probably going to do that. If I have questions and it takes this much effort to like find somebody to ask, track them down, have them be willing to answer my question, and that's this much effort, like probably going to put in like the least amount of effort possible. We all do that, right? And so our sex education needs to be just as available. Provide age-appropriate sex education, so you can think back to our what's appropriate at what age. And then youth are consistently saying that they get sex education for pornography when like youth are sort of surveyed about like why they might access pornography. But they also say that they want sex education from their school and families. And most of them want it from their families before they want it from their schools. But parents tend to say that they want their school to provide sex education, not them. So like we really need to come together with this, because otherwise like the potential for harm in a variety of ways, not just related to pornography, is high. And why pornography? The last one, this is not, again, like an exhaustive list, but it can make good feelings happen, right? So somebody sees like a sexual stimuli. These are natural biological responses, and it makes good feelings. My body feels good. My penis feels tingly. My vulva feels warm, So I'm going to seek out that feeling again. So talk about and allowing time for solo sex routines or masturbation that don't start with pornography viewing. Is also really important. And talking about like pleasure generally with kids and teens is a good idea. So what are some things that make you feel good? Even if that's just like eating pizza makes me feel really good, right? It's not sexual. We're just talking about all of the different things that can make you feel good. If we're looking at like a safety and like, again, harm reduction, maybe having to explore providing some non-pornographic images as an alternative to stop that pornography-seeking behavior. So it could be something like, a particular character that somebody likes, and so you may be, finding pictures online and printing them out so that that person has that material, but you're putting it in a container of safety, not a physical container, but like a metaphorical container. Or non-pornographic images like, magazines, like adult, sort of like even like fitness magazines and those sort of things that can sort of fill that need. I don't think those things necessarily need to be provided like freely or just like in a preventative way, but if it's an alternative to somebody exploring pornography on the internet, we might want to look at giving them some non-pornographic images as an alternative. And again, we're talking about people that are under the age of 18. These people are youth. But we need to do pornography education. So we need to talk specifically about pornography. I don't have time to go through like how to teach these things. I have, again, some resources that will follow. But I think that it's very important that we do this education and not just get caught in another abstinence-only trap like we had done for so many years with sex education broadly. So starting with lessons that are like, pornography isn't a good place to learn about sex and relationships. But a good place to learn about sex and relationships is talking to family. What are family rules? What are we looking at in terms of what is a good, like a healthy relationship, a non-healthy relationship, and an abusive relationship? Talking about pornography as entertainment, and the people in them are professionals and actors. Just like the people that you watch playing baseball are professionals. They've trained, that's their job, they do it professionally all of the time. You wouldn't just run out onto the baseball field and expect to pitch a no-hitter, and we can't just expect to like watch pornography and learn anything about how people have sex. And pornography is like any other movie. It's edited, directed, has professional lighting. These people, it's like all set up. But people think that if that's not told to somebody, they think that what they're seeing is just this spontaneous sex that's just happening and just happened to be filmed. So we need to talk about what pornography really is. And discussion about what is depicted in pornography and what sex is in real life. And so some of those conversations end up having to be like a little bit more specific and explicit. So a few things that are important to think about. Most of the free, easily accessible pornography, not all pornography, some pornography does do a good job of some of these things, does not depict ongoing consent, safer sex practices like barrier methods, a wide variety of bodies. So that means both like disabled bodies, bodies of different body types, fat bodies, disabled bodies, doesn't depict a lot of mutual pleasure, and a variety of identities in terms of gender identity. There is some pornography that's produced, but it tends to be pornography that is like ethically made and you have to pay for. The free accessible pornography sometimes does not do a good job of depicting these things. What it does depict is more extreme or advanced sexual activities without any context. So not talking about the consent process that went into it, not talking about the safety precautions that went into it, not talking about how somebody prepares their body to complete a specific sex act, and doesn't talk about power dynamics and sexual relationships that would be illegal or taboo in real life. So, for instance, teacher-student, right? That's something that in real life would be illegal, and we don't want somebody watching pornography thinking like, oh, it's okay to have sex with a teacher. Or taboos, so things like incest porn, where brothers and sisters, stepmom, stepson, those sorts of things. If that's the only pornography that people are accessing, they may think that those relationships are expected or accepted in real life. And so we need to say explicitly that those things are taboo or illegal. So I'll pause on this slide for a second, and people can QR code with your smartphone. The first one is Sex Positive Families. This link is a link to their website. This website and associated Instagram is just a fantastic resource overall. The one below, Sex Positive Talks to Have with Kids, is a fantastic book that has conversation guides for parents. How do I start the conversation about pornography for different age groups, 0 to 3, 4 to 7, 8 to 12, 12 plus, so that you can sort of have like a bit of an idea of how to start this conversation with your child. The top one is the porn conversation, which is made by a ethical porn producer, Erica Lust, and there's conversation guides you can download from that website that are PDF that have guides for different age groups. So I think there's like young and then like preteens and teens. And then at the bottom is a book from a Vancouver Island sex educator, Carrie Isham, and within this book, you can get it as a digital download. Carrie has an activity that talks about some of the differences between pornography and real life. Carrie also has that as a resource on their website. So if you're sort of like, I don't know the differences between pornography and real life, Carrie has some examples there of some things that might be good conversation starters for people to have with their kids.